This is the Authentic Dating series brought to you by Ahmad and David,
where we explore what it takes to have a dating life you're excited about.
Hey guys, I'm David.
I'm Ahmad.
And this is the Authentic Dating series.
So welcome to our Movember special. We wanted to really speak about this topic. You know, it's Movember and a lot of people are getting involved by growing a moustache. Dave already has one, and I don't think I've shaved since the beginning of lockdown back in March 2020. So, yeah, it's an interesting topic. I was actually just talking to David about how even though I'm aware enough, like my partner can still say to me that I don't share how I'm really feeling, and I feel like this is such a big thing for men nowadays that we struggle to just say how we're really feeling, or even, you know, if we are aware of our emotions, to really vocalize to those around us about, you know, what's going on for us, or if we're up or down. So I think this is a great topic.
Yeah. And before we actually get into the topic a bit more, just to mention that, you know, we've got our coaching program that we run for 3 months with guys. So we're still taking in people. We've still got a couple more spots left. So if you're interested, you know, contact us through the normal channels, through our email address, hello@Authentic Dating Series, or contact us through Instagram. We love the Instagram. We had a wonderful live we did with Ben Bidwell, actually. So it's a good place to contact us through there. But we're just, you know, we're doing some great work with actually helping men in this what we're going to talk about today, is opening them up, sharing feelings, you know, checking in on people, empathizing and so forth. Because those things are, you know, incredibly important for us as men to do. And that leads nicely onto the other point we're going to let you know about, is that we actually got a workshop coming up called The Hidden Power of Your Emotions. This has kind of come out of some of the work we do in our coaching program, where we help men get in touch with what they're feeling, learn to communicate that effectively, feel it in other people, and also see the power in actually, when you get in touch with what you're feeling, and then using that feeling to propel you towards the goals you have in your life, the actions you want to take, the things you want to create in your life. We often see emotions as something that's, you know, sometimes quite useless, and, you know, we think logic will always be the way, but actually behind every powerful man there's a drive and a love and a passion for what he's doing, and we're really helping men get in touch with that passion and that love to propel them in what they're doing, whether that be relationships, whether that be their work, their other ventures. And this Hidden Power of Your Emotions course workshop is perfect for you, getting a nice introductory taste of how you can step into that for yourself.
Yeah, and I guess we're going to talk a bit more about that in this episode, you know, because it's an interesting way in which we relate to emotions, almost like they're this nuisance thing, which it's a bit like the appendix, you know, like and the appendix is one I've had my appendix removed when I was young. Yeah, it became painful, and then I think it almost burst or something. So I was in hospital and they removed it just in time. And, you know, the reason I say it's a bit like an appendix is because people so often say, oh, well, you know, the appendix, I mean, the best explanation I've ever understood is that the appendix is used for digesting grass or something like that. And we don't eat so much grass now as humans. So we don't need it. And so you just chop it out. And yeah, like, so emotions are very much like that. It's like this nuisance thing that gets in the way, and, you know, it's like, for a lot of men it just feels like, oh, we don't need this, we just need to learn how to deal with this, and so that we can remove it. But actually, what we've come to learn, and what we coach guys in, is that actually our emotions, as David just mentioned, you know, they drive our actions. When we're able to fully understand this, you're able to actually choose, you know, what is it that you want to create, you know, as opposed to just having it happen to you. And it's so important that we become aware then how we feel, you know, like, how do we actually feel? And so I love this phrase that I often say is, you know, we're helping men to feel what they're really feeling,
Mm.
not just oh, I'm okay or I'm good. No, how are we really feeling, and strengthening their emotional vocabulary so that they're able to really express it, um, in an articulate way that they understand what they're actually feeling. And there was this app you actually, I just saw you sent me a screenshot of it earlier today. The
Mm.
Fillmore app, the
Mm.
Filmo, the Filmo, the
Mm.
Filmo, yeah, the Filmo app, and it's a new app that Dave's been testing out, and it's helping people to feel more and just what do they say? How do they put it? Labeling.
Yeah, labeling, the importance of like labeling what you're feeling, but it actually is that, the more we label and describe what we're feeling, it's actually proven to be better for our well-being.
Mm,
And like acknowledging the emotions, and we know this already through the work we've done, is like acknowledging your emotions helps you develop more emotional awareness, better ability to communicate them, and it also kind of lessens the kind of the feeling intensity, just
mm,
labeling your emotions. And it's a really, it's a great little app. I've used it
mm.
for a little while now, and it's great.
Well, it definitely sounds exactly what we talk about, right? Like when you sent me
Mm.
that screenshot, I read through it and I was like, yeah, cool. Like that's exactly what we've been doing in our coaching sessions and with guys. Is we one of the first steps is we help them to, now I know the correct label for it is labeling. so yeah, the correct word is labeling. So yeah, we help guys to identify what they're really feeling, and then how to communicate and express that, because it is a very cathartic process of just doing that. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But to kick us off, I think will be really interesting to hear what we think about Movember, or what it actually means to us. So what would you say, David? What does Movember mean for you?
Um, November for me, I guess, think about it now, is like I always thought November was just about growing moustaches, right? And for anyone who knows me well, see me that me growing facial hair takes, I have a small little bit of hair on my chin, and it basically has taken the best part of 2 years to grow. Um, so 1 month of not shaving for me is very normal,
Hmm.
really. 2 months, even three, I think, is really normal in my
So
life. To, I know.
you can't grow a moustache
I think I could, if I did it for a month, I think it'd be really quite feeble. But it would be, if I shave the size, it would be noticeable. But I'd look like a 13-year-old boy.
with a moustache.
Yeah, when you're 13 years old and the boys are like shaving because they, got a bit of facial hair. I
Yeah.
was that 13-year-old boy who didn't need to shave until, I don't think I shaved really like myself until I was probably about 27 or
Oh, that's useful, man. Trust saves a lot of time.
28. But yeah, I think, November to me is about men's health actually. Like it's kind of expanded, I think, to be about men's health. I know there's a big part of it is about testicular cancer, for instance, and I know that's a big issue amongst. I know it's actually quite an issue amongst black men. I know one of my uncles had testicular cancer and prostate cancer as well. One of my uncles had prostate cancer, and a family friend of mine had prostate cancer probably about 15 years ago and passed away from that.
Oh wow.
So it's something that I know in the black community is something for men, especially to be checking at like the age of 45, I think the numbers are.
Mm,
So yeah, and I think there's also a big healthy chunk in there in my mind about kind of mental health as well.
mm, mm. Yeah, I think definitely for me, the main thing that jumps out is around prostate cancer, and that's I think where it began. Like I think on the
Mm,
basis, but definitely in 2020, mental health has become a huge part of it. For me personally, it really is about men talking. That's how I feel. Like it's really about men speaking up, speaking about these topics, and just speaking. Because there was one, I think it was on Instagram, an account I came across when I was doing some research around November, and I saw this guy had essentially, I think a friend of his had committed suicide in the past, and it had really taken him down a journey of trying to understand what this was about. And it was quite promising to hear what he discovered, and that he found that a lot of the problems around suicide came down to men not talking. And
mm,
I thought, really, could it be this simple? But I guess when done correctly, It really is. You know, we've discussed about men's group and stuff in the past, and essentially what he went on to create was a thing called a community called Talk Club, and I believe
Oh
they're
yeah.
all they're all over the world now. And essentially, it's a very simple premise: is to get men talking and offer them a safe space for them to talk. And so for me, a lot of Movember is really about men acknowledging and speaking up. You know, acknowledging problems and speaking up about things and sharing challenges that they're facing. I think we picked this topic on the basis of the fact that I was just sharing with Dave before we recorded that even my partner was saying to me that I don't seem to communicate how much lockdown affects me, or I seem to have just dealt with it and moved on
Mm.
to something else. To which I argued back and defended myself vehemently that I do discuss things and say she just doesn't listen. And then after conceding that I was wrong, no, she was always right. No, but it was like I mean, I was just like, oh, is that really the case? It's interesting because I do feel like I do share, but then equally, I think she's correct in some ways that I do feel that I have dealt with some elements of it. Like some things are less surprising to me because I kind of took them on board quite early on. Like for example, that this was not going to be over soon. Like this,
Mm.
back in March, it was like a 2 week,
Mm.
flatten the curve model. Everyone was excited, and we all went into lockdown. Just like, right, okay, let's deal with this head on. But here we are, basically coming to the end of the year, and we're in lockdown again. And it's going on and on. So part of me, and the reason why I had that premonition was because I don't know if premonition is the right word, but it sounds good. But the reason I had that premonition was because I do work in healthcare and I saw how much was going on behind the scenes, which
Mm.
gave me an indication that this was not a quick thing. And when I say
Mm.
that, I just mean policy, procedure. All these things are coming into place, and they were pretty hard line structures. So I was like, this is not something that's going to just disappear. It's something that we're going to have to adapt to. But nonetheless, things are always changing, and so no matter what piece I might have today, tomorrow is another day. and
Yeah.
and so I think it's important that we all learn to be able to share when we're frustrated and when things come up.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, like even out of this conversation, was that I was sharing with AJ some of my personal frustrations that I'm dealing with now. And as much as we sit and talk on the podcast about opening up and talking, like I might talk to my partner about them during the day, and I'm working from home. I haven't necessarily gone into detail with other people in my life. Like I know I've mentioned some stuff to my sister recently, and even my mum, but it's been very much like, oh yeah, I'm feeling a bit frustrated, and they're like, oh okay, cool, like have you tried doing this and this, and you're like, yeah, cool, because I'm not having that normal human interaction. I'm a very person, like I like to be in person with people. For me and Ahmad, for instance, like normally when we would record in person, we probably a lot like 4 hours to do one half an hour recording, because
Mm,
it would be, we'd sit down for half an hour, we'd talk about how we've been feeling, what's been going on
mm,
for us, and blah blah blah. And in the lockdown, like we've probably seen each other, I'd say reasonably regularly, through due to our podcast and the business reasons. But it's probably nowhere as near as much talking we would do outside of lockdown, and we would
mm,
probably get into topics and just, sit and talk for hours on end. And those times just aren't happening, and I must say, I really miss those times. As we reflecting on that yesterday, and like even numerous people I would just kind of talk to, meet up with for a drink or meet up for dinner, and that's not really happening. And it's very easy to just be in your cocoon, be in your cocoon of, like, maybe you're listening to this and you're a guy, you live on your own, or you live with some housemates, or you live with your partner, for instance, and you're just, having small conversations with them. And it becomes a point where you feel like, oh, I don't want to burden them with my constant complaining about whatever it be. It could be work, it could be your health. But actually, it's really good to voice how you're feeling and what's going on for you. And it doesn't have to be a big thing, It can
mm,
just be simply like, ah, you know, I was really irritating. It's raining today. Something as simple as that, like just saying it out loud and someone hearing you and acknowledging that, and also acknowledging for yourself that's how you're feeling. Because like we're saying, it's very easy to go, oh, I don't need to mention it, it's not a big deal, or you on the other side, it's like, oh, I don't want to mention it because I don't want to burden someone with how I'm feeling. When actually, you know, you give people the opportunity to be in service of you, actually, by helping you. When you do open up and you allow them to maybe listen, help, whatever, and it's just very easy for us men to just not speak.
Mm,
Like I don't necessarily spend lots of time on the telephone to people, because I reckon I probably spend 4 to 6 hours a day often on Zoom,
mm,
between the different activities. And then in the evening, I might be working on some stuff that or writing or whatever it may be. Then I don't think, oh, let me pick up the phone and speak to someone for an hour. My mind's very much like, oh, I'd rather just go and be with someone and sit with them. So I think sometimes it's really easy to get quite isolated at home and feel,
mm,
really adrift from the world in your own little home bubble.
mm, mm, mm. Yeah, yeah. No, that. I mean, the thing is for me is that I grew up as a middle child, and I spent a lot of time by myself growing up.
Mm,
So this situation, like this is my this is my playground. This is where isolating is, and being away from people is something that I used to do a lot when I was young.
mm,
Um, but the lack of freedom that I once had in terms of moving around, meeting people, and just doing whatever, that's what I think gets to me. Is the sense of
mm.
like whether I've had 3 or 4 trips cancelled, 3 to the same place, trying to get to this one, trying to get to Mauritius. I had my wedding cancelled. And other things, and we've all faced these things, and but they cause frustrations, and they cause stress,
Mm,
and worry and doubt and confusion as to what is going to happen, even tomorrow. Like I'm just like, well, what will tomorrow bring? So I think yeah, the general situation itself does bring about, like you say, isolation, frustration, anger, and we're not even talking about people who have been quite badly affected. We're just talking about people that haven't been that badly affected. I think speaking for myself, I feel very fortunate thus far that I haven't been so badly affected, and I'm aware some of our friends financially have been, and some people have been quite ill, and taken some time to recover, and been quite scared about what's been happening as well, right? So in general, there's a lot to contend with. But I think from my experience as a man, and what I've learned through the work that we've been doing, is I think the number one thing that really gets in men's way, at least as well, is the shame of not dealing with things. So I don't
mm,
want to speak out. I don't want to be vulnerable, because there's a big shame around being that man that can't just deal with it, that
mm,
that
mm,
that
mm,
can't just man up, in that old saying. I was actually watching The Crown on Netflix, and there was even a scene where um, one of the family members had been bombed by the ROA. Mountbatten was
mm,
bombed by the RA, and Prince Philip said to Prince Charles was that he wouldn't have wanted them to be like giving any big displays of grief,
mm,
and whatnot. And I was like, oh wow, there you go, there you have it, right? Like that's the sort of thing that men are expect of themselves. Oh, we're not here to give big displays of grief and sadness and whatnot in general. Um, and what I find is like that really it gets in the way of actually making a real connection with people around me. For me, it always comes from a space of shame, not
mm,
wanting to be seen to be weak, not wanting to be seen to not have things uh, completely figured out, and that I potentially, that I'm not feeling great, that I'm not feeling good, I'm not feeling
mm.
strong. That so
Yeah.
exposing myself to exposing my vulnerabilities, and especially around other men, like the sense where when there's men around, it's like, well, we all got to be strong, like
Yeah.
we can't be seen to be that weak link. And I really feel that that is a prime reason that for many men that we just don't talk. Then, whether it's to our partners, to our family, to our friends, we're just yeah, we're good, because anything else is brings shame and disgrace upon us. And so that's how I feel. And I know we were talking about like tactical suggestions as to like, how can we help people through this, right?
Mm.
And I find the most fascinating thing is we carry so much shame. I made a really good I made a really good metaphor for this. It's like imagine a helium balloon, or like a balloon, rather, not a helium balloon, but a balloon filled with toxic gas. And even if you let out a little bit of the toxic gas, that's less toxic gas inside the balloon. Even just a little bit.
Mm.
And this is the thing. It's like just being vulnerable, just sharing something, right? It may feel like it's gonna like tear your world apart, and everything's gonna crashing down, or people are gonna reject you, but actually it's never the case. Like, people most often, when you say, oh, I've been feeling frustrated about this, or I'm angry, or I feel stuck, people can relate, because everyone feels frustrated, angry, or stuck at some point in their life. But
Mm.
for some reason, as men, we always feel like, no, we can never reveal this truth. We must hide the truth. But when we do, it's actually always received well, and in fact, it's often wanted, especially by partners and family. They want to hear our truth.
Yeah, yeah, and I think even you talk about the shame. It's like this, and sometimes the shame disguises itself as something, almost like something else. Like, oh, it's okay. I don't need to, I don't really need to speak about this. Oh, I've got this. I kind of know what I need to do. I just need to do X, Y, and Z. It's often it kind of comes up as like, oh no, it's fine. I'll figure it out, or I've got it figured out. I'm just being lazy, or whatever it may be, and we're like, oh, we don't need to share. And it's very interesting, I think, for me, when put in a position where I'm talking to someone and we're just talking, it eventually kind of falls out my mouth. Whatever frustration or whatever I'm feeling just kind of falls out of my mouth. Given long enough, if I'm having a half an hour conversation, I can't help but just say how I'm feeling. But what I find I do is almost very subconsciously avoid having myself in the situations where I'm going to be with someone for half an hour and talking, or I stick to being very on topic, or purposeful, of a
Mm.
call.
Mm,
Like
mm, mm,
we can easily have many calls where like, okay, we need to talk about our coaching clients. So we get on a call, we say, how are you? I'm good, I'm good. We get into talk about coaching clients, and then we do that for an hour, and then okay, cool, we've got something else to jump off to, right? It's almost leaving that space sometimes to have nothing necessarily that needs to be talked about, but then you fill in the space of just talking with someone. But yeah, I see for myself how just kind of inadvertently isolating myself, and also hiding behind texting,
mm,
I think is an interesting one as well for us. It's like, I'm just going to text everybody all the
mm,
time and feel like I'm connected, but actually in quite a disconnected way.
mm,
Um, because your fingers will only type so much for so long, and you're just going to kind of tell them top lines. You're not going to really get into the details of it. So I think that there's a lot of things that masquerade for us men as avoidance in talking, and we a lot of the time we tell ourselves, oh, it's fine, I don't want to burden them, I don't want to bother someone, oh, they're having a harder time than me. I think that's a big one as well, especially
mm,
as you were saying before, there's people far worse off than ourselves, and oh, I don't want to talk about me because there's other people who are far worse off in this situation, and that would be selfish, or that would be me not having perspective. But actually, however you're feeling is really valid.
mm,
It's
mm,
really valid and deserves to be heard. I think
mm,
that's a
mm, mm.
really important message. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because the thing about like comparing ourselves to others is, everyone has a cross to bear. I think is the old thing. Is this, and pain is pain, or in my opinion, right? So like maybe, maybe you lost a fiver and someone else lost 100 million, right? But it
Mhm.
depends what that fiver meant to you. Maybe that's all you
Mm.
had, you know.
It's relative.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly, it's relative, and so this is the thing: is like when we compare and we say, "Oh, well, my pain is lesser than theirs, so I should be grateful." That's part of the problem, because then we're not acknowledging that we're in pain, and yeah, and there's so much we do for avoidance, which is, avoidance can come out in many different ways, and I feel like it's something that we sometimes do willingly, right? Like, some the conversation comes up and we're just like, well, no, we just won't talk about it. We'll stubbornly not talk about it. Or the classic of turning to some form of drugs, like
Mm.
some to numb the pain. And it's good to notice because I think that's a first step, is to notice your avoidance strategies, and
Mhm.
notice what they are, because we're all feeling stuff, and so I think emotions are always happening. They're always on. They're never off. So we're always feeling, and it's good to recognize at a first instance go, okay, yeah, like I'm feeling something. I think for me, like that's possibly the best skill that I've learned, is to be able to recognize when I don't feel good, or that I'm avoiding, or that I'm not 100% with it, and I'm just pushing through. I used to call it the flying the plane through the clouds.
Mm.
Like, it's just kind of like you're just trying to keep going, but it's almost like your head and your limbs are not quite like
Mm.
aligned, and you're
Mm.
just trying to just keep soldiering on, because if you just keep going, eventually it will be over. But it's not really dealing with what is causing the frustration or the upset. It's just kind of hoping that it will go away with time.
Yeah. 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 And it's very manly to do, to soldier on,
Mm,
in all the terms around us men, it's like suck it up, deal with it, you know, put it to one side. It's all very much about, just keep on going. And in this fictitious belief that eventually the cloud's going to just suddenly stop and everything's going to be fine.
mm,
And
mm,
actually, it's not really how it works. And like with this month being such an important month, Movember, around mental health, it's like the first steps in good mental health is just talking to people
mm,
about how you are, what's going on for you, what you're thinking and feeling. And it's why, the course we were talking about before is so important, because when you start to enable the language of your feelings and actually how to express them in different ways, then you actually find this whole new gateway to actually saying how you're feeling, getting things off your chest.
mm.
Because when you're operating from a place of like, oh, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm okay, I'm not too bad, I've had better days, that's a very, very narrow band of feeling and emotion. When really there's an infinite way in which you can describe how you're feeling. There really is an infinite way,
Yeah.
number of ways, sorry.
Yeah, when you say that as well, like, because like I'm fine and I'm good, for me sounds like putting like wallpapering over the cracks in the walls. It's like literally I'm fine is the wallpaper that we put over
Yeah.
like a massive crack, rather than actually dealing with the crack, and fixing it. And yeah, and I think, I don't know if this is a tactical step per se, but I feel like acknowledging and accepting that something's not right is a key step, because until until you accept that, then it's often difficult to take the next step of actually seeking help.
Mm.
Until you accept that, fuck, like this, every day I feel like shit, or I feel like this isn't right, or something's wrong. Then until you acknowledge that there's something off, then everything's going to be fine, isn't it? Everything's going to be in the language of, well, it's fine, it's good, others are worse off, I shouldn't complain, I've got it pretty good. But it's really about acknowledging that, and then I would say really finding the right person to speak to,
Mm.
about these things. Sometimes it might be a therapist, a psychotherapist, someone who deals specifically in the areas of mental health, or addiction, or whatever, right? But it's finding the right type of person, because sometimes we can choose people who aren't the right people, whether they be friends or family, and they're not equipped to deal with certain conversations, or sometimes we've got something quite traumatic that's going on, and in
Mm.
those cases, it's some things are fine, and even with our coaching, right, there's limits to who we can coach. We don't coach or people around trauma. It's not something that we're educated in, or how do you say,
Qualified.
qualified. Yeah, it's not something we're qualified to do, and people who are qualified for a reason. They've gone through, they understand it deeply, and they know how to navigate those waters. And it's important that you find the right people to speak to, because sometimes speaking to the wrong person can make it worse if they don't understand your situation, or if they tell you it's not serious, or you should just shut up. and
Mm.
whatever, that's not going to be positive. So it's important that you speak to the right people, but make the space, to go, right. So step one is like, right, something's not right. Step two is like, who can I talk to? Like who's, and there are, and thankfully, these days there are a number of places, or charities especially, that we can call up and speak to, if we're having various issues. So I know, the top one that comes to my mind, especially around suicide, is the Samaritans. They've
Mm.
been around since eons. And that's exactly what they're set up to deal with, is speaking with people on this and getting the right support to those people who need that. But also, there's also all these now apps around. I keep seeing one. Was it Better Health?
Mm.
Better Health. They keep advertising to me. I made a post about it on Instagram
Yeah, I
recently.
saw.
Yeah, because on my personal Instagram they showed me some married guy with looking very professional, and then
Mm.
on the authentic dating one, I thought it was amazing. The guy had pink hair and he had a blue eye. I was like, this guy,
Oh,
you couldn't get the demographic much different than this.
wow.
Yeah. You got one guy with a blue eye, and you got in my personal one, it's a professional dude in a suit and a wedding ring on. It's just like, oh, amazing,
Wow.
super targeted, super.
Yeah. See the target advertising.
Yeah, I thought it was funny. But yeah, but there are so many of these services available now, and I think it's super important because speaking, as we've just been saying, it's not the solution in its entirety, but I think it's a big way there when we can actually open up and say and share what's going on for us.
Yeah, yeah. Like you said, there's a lot of groups. You've got some of the kind of classic ones like the Samaritans, and you've got plenty of men's groups. If you were to just Google men's groups London or men's group whatever area you're in, or in the UK, right, you will find a whole host of men's groups. As like Andy's Talking Club. I was thinking of, is it Hugh
Mm,
Man,
mm,
as well as one that we followed. Um, I'm thinking of one of our friends, Kapil runs a men's group as well. We had Lawrence Johns as part of Mankind Project. And I'm thinking of Kenny Manuela de Cruz. He runs Men's Speak, I think it is. There's a lot of men's groups out there you can go to as a completely anonymous human being. When no one
mm,
knows you, you can speak completely freely. Um,
yeah.
or you might want to, I know people who get coaches for that reason as well, as to have someone to talk to that's outside of their life. Like you said, therapists, but there's a lot out there. And there's also just, friends,
Mm,
family members, like a wiser human being that it was something that I was thinking to us the other day. It's like, it's the importance of having wiser human beings in your life, wiser men, women that aren't necessarily your relatives, or maybe they are your relatives that you can just
mm,
talk to, and they can give you that wisdom of years of living and experience when they listen.
yeah.
And I was thinking that, in the days gone by, we'd have lived in community. We would have lived
Mm,
in groups of 30 or 40 people, a couple of families, and you really would have had that. You would have had the community you can speak to. Your not even an uncle, is someone who you might call uncle because they're part of the kind of extended family to talk
mm,
to, but just opening up and talking. And I think there's also, even for some guys, if it's actually just journaling, like doing some
mm,
writing and starting doing that. If you're not really getting it out of your head, just writing it down. It's definitely something I've done 4 or 5 times actually during this year, where I'm just like, oh, there's a lot going on in my head. I just pick up a pen and just start writing it all down, writing it all out. And
mm,
there's times where I've just thrown it in the bin afterwards. But it's an amazing process of just actually putting it into words and letting go of it and just putting it away. I
mm.
found to be really useful exercise.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Yeah, I was thinking of, like, like for me personally in my own life, where I'm at today, and I've done various things in my life, right? Like what you're talking about there, writing, um, journaling, and sometimes answering specific questions, or writing down 100 things that I enjoy doing, or all these different ones in terms of writing. But where I'm at today, I think, like, the things that, I mean, this is just me today and what works for me now, but I have tried a whole bunch of stuff. Is the current structures in my life are like, I have a coach, like a creative coach that I speak to once every couple of weeks,
Mm,
and that's where I use those sessions to focus on big visions and things that I'd love to create, and also deal with the current reality of like, well, how
mm,
do I relate to those creations, right? And what comes up for me, or where do I feel that I fall short of creating of creating such things in my life. And that's a huge like, even though it's once every couple of weeks, like it always puts me on a good path, like in
mm,
terms of like, I always leave those sessions feeling like, right, cool, I feel reconnected, engaged, grounded, and like consciously moving forward. And then I would say, I think the interesting thing is, and I guess you could slot anything into this one, and it's discipline. For
mm,
me, the discipline of meditating, and I do a particular meditation each morning, and it's actually around, again, my visions. I really take the time to connect with what it is that I want to create. And this for me is so important because I find that my head is always buzzing with like a million ideas, and even with what's going on in the world now, trying to figure out what's going on. I feel like I'm swimming in a sea of information. So by taking, sometimes it takes 15 minutes, sometimes it takes half an hour or more, right? But I try to keep about 15 minutes, and I'll focus on what it is I'm creating and what actions am I going to take today. And that's a huge one for me. And I say discipline because I try and get it done now, like within the first couple of hours of my day, and really having that discipline and doing that puts me on a good steed. And then I'd say exercise is like another one, which for my mental fitness, like for my health and my mental fitness, it really puts me in a good mood. I don't always feel like doing it, but it definitely is something. Again, discipline around exercise helps to increase my serotonin levels, uh, and puts me in a very present mode. So I feel that's really handy. And I think the other thing, like David had already mentioned, but this is huge in my life, is having a great network of people that I can turn to for different things. Whether it's like, I've got friends, if I'm having a specific problem, like business wise, I've got friends I would speak to about that. I've got relationship stuff. I'll either speak to my partner directly, or I'm speaking to David. Um, and general life stuff. I've got mentors, or as Dave said, elders that I would turn to and speak to. And these are things that I actually do, right? I'm not talking to you about ideas or random stuff. These are things that are structures I have in my life. And in addition to all the other courses and stuff that I've done, where I will then take time to digest and work myself through challenges, I can always reach out to people as well. And I
mm,
think these have all put me in good stead nowadays to have that. And I'm continuously learning more stuff, right? It's not like I'm done. Things evolve.
mm, mm. Yeah, having a network. We've all got networks of people. I think the listeners. There's more people out there that would listen to you than you would think.
Mm,
There's always more people. And I think a really good practice actually would be, whether you're living alone or with a partner, with a house of people, is make one, especially during these lockdown times, is make one phone call a day to
mm,
somebody. Like, make one phone call a day to somebody. It could be anybody. It could be somebody you haven't spoke to for a year, 2 years, whatever. Just have a phone call. Maybe it's only going to be 15 minutes, but just call up and go, hey, how you doing? It could be different people every day. It could be 3 or 4 different, people you cycle through. But just picking up the phone and calling people and just saying, hey, how are you? Just talking. Like,
mm.
that goes a long way. You don't have anything in particular you want to say, but that just dialing the number is a really great way to start.
I think that's actually a wonderful initiative for lockdown in general, right? Like, I think if everyone did that, I think that would lift the mood and the spirit of the nation. Like, it's
Yeah,
reconnecting. Well, getting people talking, getting people connected in a world of disconnection at the moment.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Because yeah, I guess some of the practices like the mindfulness, meditation stuff like that is really good. But I think it's so easy to, as we said, it's like just become a bit isolated and just be in your own little bubble of doing what you do, being in your routines, and not reaching out and being with people and feeling other people. More than anything, just feeling other people and allowing other people to feel you in with your words, with your seeing you or hearing you, being with you. It goes a really long way.
Mm,
we communicate a lot when we speak outside of the words for our tonality and stuff like that, but we also communicate a lot just being seen as well. And it enables us to let go of a lot of things by just being with other people and allowing them to feel what we're feeling. And also, it actually helps us in feeling other people. That empathy goes really a long way to healing us.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Cool. I think that covers it.
Yeah. I think we got a good few things in there. We talk about Movember and what that's about, and the importance of that. And we'll probably drop in some links to some good causes and more information you want to read around, testicular cancer, prostate cancer, especially. And if you're, I think it's pretty much if you're kind of 45 and above, you should be getting various checks. We'll probably stick some stuff in there about, you can go to the Movember website actually and find out what age and what checks you should be doing. As men, we often shy away from those checks with the doctors, but they are incredibly important to catch things early. And also, just talking, more than anything is like I've been really open with you about our own struggles with sharing how we're feeling. And it's like, if we're feeling that way, then we know there's a lot of other people feeling that way. And it also means that there's people that are feeling that way. And maybe you picking up the phone and calling them really alleviates their day, makes them smile, helps them have a better day. And just, gets a load off their chest, even if it's just hearing your voice and hearing you talk about yourself.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So I think that's the episode. I think it's a nice little end to the episode. It's a really short one today in comparison to some of the marathons we put forward in the last few weeks. So like we said at the beginning, if coaching is something of interest to you and you want to expand your ability to communicate, especially if you're a man and you find yourself in relationships where women are often saying to you, you're cold, I don't understand you, I never know what you're feeling, I don't know if you care. Our coaching really is for you. If you speak into that, or you're fearful around taking action as a man in your dating life, then really we can really help you with that. And the course we're going to be running on the 2nd of December, again, is all about, helping you be more in touch with emotions, understand the language of emotions, and sharing and empathizing, and also using your emotions to drive you towards your goals, what you want to create, and the things that, you really want for your life.
Yeah, it's big. Like, what a lot of people don't realize is they often think around dating, it's all just the tactical, external action that, they do. If they get that all correct, then their life will be sweet. But what I found in my experience is that the inner world of emotions goes a long way in helping to build connection, and deep and meaningful connection at that. Not just some vain idea of a connection, but actually a real connection with people, and a real understanding of who you are, how you interact with the world, and who you want to be with, and how you want to be with them, and real richness to life. I think, what was it? We're one of the things that was said is it was saying in the new course is that facts tell you what happened, emotions give you context, color, and meaning in life. So we'll leave you with that.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you for joining us today, and we bid you good day.
Ciao, ciao.